Hey there, Crumbums. If you're watching this special censored version of Canonically Crumb, it's because YouTube took down the original video. Now, I consider this program to be educational as well as entertainment. You know, I'm a professional cartoonist, I've been in Mad Magazine, but I'm also a professional educator, and I have a degree from an arts university where I studied, amongst other things, comics and art history. Robert Crumb is a seminal and seminal artist, one of the most notable of the 20th century. And while people might consider his work to be masturbatory, he's been heavily criticized by fans of pornography for making work that's specifically not arousing. It's not filthy, it's Freudian. And I find the implication that I'm presenting this material for sexual gratification frankly insulting. What I'm doing is presenting the material in a way that celebrates Crumb's work with an appropriate amount of camp and tongue-in-cheek playfulness. Now, I know I put this disclaimer at the beginning of my videos, where I warn viewers that his work contains imagery which might be considered racist, misogynist, violent, or pornographic, but I put it there because I think people should be able to avoid seeing content that offends them. Maybe not in every setting, but certainly on YouTube. Which is also why I voluntarily use the age restriction setting, despite the fact that it severely handicaps video performance. So, I'll appeal this takedown, since I believe, at worst, I'm walking the line of YouTube's guidelines. But there's not much more I can do. In the meantime, Crumbums, you can see the original uncensored video and all the Canonically Crumb content by supporting me on Patreon. Link in the show description. With that said, please enjoy what's left of this video.
It's showtime, folks. Enjoy the show.
It's a Canonically Crumb list. Hey there, Crumbums. This is the first episode of a brand new supplemental series, and it's an attempt to create some shorter Canonically Crumb content. So it's a list episode. We're doing lists now. And today's list is Top 10 Toughest Tushies in the Crummyverse. Rules. The rules are as follows. We're only looking at canonical asses. So, sorry, Caffey. To be considered for this list, a character, or at least their ass, has to appear on more than one panel. And we're not basing our assessment on anatomical observations or surface area or volume. No calipers required, because these are not necessarily the biggest or the most muscular butts or anything like that. We'll do some lists of those in the future. Our only real criteria for today is, well, shock absorption, basically. That's right, Crumbums. We're looking for asses that can take a thumpin' and keep on rumpin'. And that's it. So without further ado, number 10, The Bunch, Aileen Kaminsky. Aileen, Robert's long-suffering real-life wife, who at least partially influenced some of the other characters on this list, has appeared in many comics within the Crummyverse, most often drawn by herself in their Dirty Laundry collaborations. I gave her the 10 spot because, for the most part, her appearances have been in the more real-world end of the Crummyverse spectrum, and I think that we'll find that the booty abuse becomes much more fantastical as we get into the more cartoony characters on the list. Their butts are on, like, a different level man, but Aileen's hiney has had a heck of a hammering over the years, so I definitely wanted to get her on this list. Sadly, Aileen died just a few weeks ago in November of 2022, and you can check out the Canonically Crumb news episode I made recently if you'd like to learn a little bit more about Aileen. Number 9. Amanda. Amanda is a completely fictional character, unlike Aileen. However, the comic that she appeared in, If I Were a King, is kind of set in the real world, albeit in an absurd fantasy scenario. We see other fantasy characters interacting with Crumb himself receive similar treatment to Amanda in the pages of Hup, such as the infantilized Crumb's German au pair in Hup number 3. But King Robert describes Amanda as having the strongest ass in all the realm. So she gets the rub, since the implication is that her ass is maximally strong for the real world. Number 8. The Butt, from Buddy's Bout with a Butt. Okay, so this is the last spot where patootie punching is the primary pitch. So sorry to Andrea Ostrich, but Buddy really bashes the bejesus out of that bum, and she barely even blinks. Number 7. Devil Girl. Now, Devil Girl never has any singular moment of extreme gluteal endurance, such that she deserves to make the list for. She's here because her buns bear the brunt of abuse over a bunch of issues of Hup. And critical to this entry is the fact that her personality is often mystically dissociated from her body somehow, and being literally objectified means that Mr. Natural and Flaky don't hold back in their assault on her ass. Red hot mama. Number 6. Tuffy. One of Frosty the Snowman's friends, Tuffy displays her brawny buttocks in a battle with Stupid Jerk, which we just looked at in episode 10 of Canonically Crumb, so check it out. Number 5. Beverly Baumstein. You need a thick skin and a tough tuchus if you're going to be the Snoid's girlfriend, especially during one of his artistic rages. But this college co-ed believes he's a genius and obliges him in all of his creative efforts. Given the Snoid's affinity for anal antics, I think it's safe to assume that she's earned her place on this list. Number 4. Josephine, the cross-eyed quadroon. I wasn't sure what to do with Josephine. First of all, I think she's one of Crumb's most egregiously racist characters. You know, quite possibly the nadir of racism in the Crummyverse. And so I'm reluctant to celebrate her in any way. Secondly, she doesn't perform any feats of fortitude with her fanny that fundamentally force me to favor Josephine for the 4th spot. But she was awarded America's Finest Bottom in the big-ass contest in her comic Josephine the Cross-Eyed Quadroon in Shakin' the African from 1976. Which means she had to have beaten out Barbara McDermott from Peoria, Illinois, and Kathy Feldman from Long Island, who both would have made this list if not for being disqualified for having only appeared in one panel each. And she won the Battle of the Butts, toppling Gina Gianni, who would also be on this list, except, well, she lost, and during the talent portion of the contest, her focus was more about dexterity rather than physical endurance. So... Number 3. Unnamed Citizen of Planet Earth. When Munyap and Farquhar visited Earth with a message of peace in the comic What Gives from 1975, they had a miscommunication over who was in charge of the landing. As a result, they came in hot, and by luck, they nailed a brown bullseye between the buns of this solid citizen. We never learn this anonymous hero's name because she panicked and ran off screaming for the police when Munyap tried to thank her. Though she did seem to make quite an impression on Farquhar. Now, in my mind, absorbing the full impact of a crash-landing UFO direct in the pooper and then just literally shaking it off is an astonishingly awesome accomplishment of the anus. But I'm not a scientist, so maybe taking a runaway UFO to the ass on its second bounce, and one whose density is considerably less than a freight truck, is maybe not as impressive as I might think. And so while I definitely believe that this anonymous citizen's close encounter of the turd kind is worthy of recognition, I was reluctant to place her in the top 2 slots. Number 2. Evelyn Haskins. When pissant gangster Fishlips steals the hitman's hip little car, Evelyn Haskins bounds into action, handily snatching the mini-maniac from Hitman's voiturette. But he fights back, and to many it seems, he stomps her down to the bricks. Of course, we can see from her internal monologue that Evelyn's big old bouncing butt barely registers the gangbanger's abuse. Then, the Fuzz arrive on the scene, and Fishlips hides behind her plump posterior for protective purposes. A shootout ensues in which the police recklessly shoot her in the caboose 3 times. As the bullets ricochet off her rump, she cries out in pain and wonders how much more punishment her tail can take. But in the aftermath, she tells the hitman that it just kinda smarts, and the only visible damage is 3 tiny bruises. Buns of steel, dude. Honorable mentions. Before we get to number 1, I just wanted to do some honorable mentions. So let's look at some of the contenders who I think are worthy of consideration, but who narrowly missed the cut for one reason or another. Number 1. Sally Blubberbutt. Now, you'd think from the name Blubberbutt that Sally is a big jiggler like Miss Quiver. But don't let the name fool you. There's no blubber in this gal's bum. Also a contender for largest ass, we first see Sally Blubberbutt on her way to school when she's abducted into this alleyway by degenerates. But not to worry, crumbums, because Sally crunches and snaps these male chauvinist super pigs between her big old legs. And while this isn't a strongest legs in the Crummyverse list, I think there's some correlation there. The real reason Sally takes the top spot happens later in the comic, when those twisted characters try to get their revenge by running her over with their car. But instead of committing vehicular homicide, the car just drives up her legs and gets stranded on her colossal keister. And as the bastards try to escape, she flips the car onto them just to teach them a lesson. Not only does this scene demonstrate that Sally Blubberbutt's bum is more stalwart than an intergalactic spacecraft, she doesn't even flinch. She's more concerned that her dress got dirty. And this is why Sally Blubberbutt is the number 1 toughest tushy in the Crummyverse, and the recipient of this week's Golden Ass. Give her a hand, Crumbums. Well, congratulations to all of our great contestants today, and thank you for watching. This has been the first episode of Canonically Crumb Lists. Please remember to hit like, hit subscribe, be a ding-dong daddy, and ding that bell. I've been your host, Kyle Bridget. You can find my links in the show description. And if you'd like more Canonically Crumb content more often, consider supporting this program on my Patreon, which you'll also find the link to in the show description as well. Canonically Crumb will be back as weekly as possible with another deep dive into the Crummyverse. Thanks again, Crumb Bums, and keep it clean.